All right. So what we like to do is we like to do some questions. We like to do like a mad minute.
Okay.
And so we're going to go ahead and start warming up.
All right.
And so this may or may not be on camera. This may or may not be on audio right now at this point. But the Mad Minute is something like things that might surprise people real quick, fast to get your brain going.
Sure.
So what is your favorite local restaurant? Yes, I'm putting you in a corner.
Oh, Casa Fiesta.
Casa Fiesta.
Love Casa Fiesta.
Favorite dish there?
The Happy Burrito.
Nice.
Yeah.
Happy Burrito
That's
at Casa
great,
Fiesta.
Great dinner.
So if we needed to get you a gift card, that'd be a good place
That would
to
be
get
the place.
you. Right on.
Yep. I am all over that.
Sports car or sedan?
If I was going to choose, I would go a sports car, a Corvette.
Ooh.
But I'd go with the old Stingray, early 70s.
Yeah.
72, 73, 74, right in there.
Those are hard to find and expensive,
Yes, they
right?
are. They're very expensive. That's why I don't drive one.
Right on.
Yes.
Favorite color?
My favorite color would be blue.
Blue.
Just always has been ever since I was a little kid.
Blue, and there's no really rhyme or reason, just attracted to it.
Yep, just like the color blue.
Yeah,
Yep.
interesting.
Yep.
Favorite sports team?
Oh, the Jayhawks.
Jayhawks.
Oh, yeah.
You're in Kansas. How do you not love the Jayhawks?
See, so you have to understand that when I was growing up, my dad is a KU alum. And so until I was about 14, I didn't even realize there were any other colleges because Dad just harped on, you have to be a Jayhawk. You have to be a Jayhawk.
Right.
So it took till about 14 that I realized, there are other schools out there besides KU.
That's interesting. I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, and Spurs basketball was the thing because we have the Spurs, but the Spurs were it's like a religion out there. And I still love the Spurs. But didn't watch college basketball because of that too much. So I was kind of blessed by that because when I got to Kansas, well, I like Texas, of course, but it was easy to get in and respect the Jayhawks program.
Sure.
And if you know the history of basketball,
yeah,
what a gem. I mean, we're right here at ground zero. Yep. So, and a lot of people think it's Indiana and it's not. It's Kansas.
It really is.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah. If you've never had a chance to go to the Booth Museum up at KU on campus,
right?
It's an amazing thing. It has all the history, all the way from Naismith to the original document that has the rules of the game, all the way up to current times. I mean, it's pretty cool.
Right on.
Pretty cool.
Last question. I know this is like mad 2 minutes, but we're going to do it anyways. Favorite superhero?
Favorite superhero? Wow. Well, honestly, over the last couple of years, it's been Deadpool, just because I love the movie.
Sweet.
I love the movie.
Never
Deadpool.
would have thought that.
That's a great movie.
Holy cow.
Ryan Reynolds just knocks it out of the park. He plays that, and he's, everybody can relate to his character in some ways because we all wish that we could say those things sometime, although we don't. But he just does it, and I think that's why I really like that.
That's awesome. Thank you for that nugget. I would have never picked that. All right. Hey, well, what we're going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and introduce you for the people that don't know you. You've been involved, and I remember meeting you back in 2009 and knowing of you and just really respecting you as a person. You got this energy and this charisma about you. And it's not really just the sales stuff, and it's just what you've chosen to do since I've known you. So it's not like an act. And was a time when you were going through a lot of stuff and transitions, and we'll speak about that more later during our podcast. But in that moment, you did not change public face, me to you. If anything, you were just the most optimistic, most positive, hard charging dude that I couldn't. And I remember feeling probably more than you were I was going through it. After I talked to you, I was thinking, how the heck is he not destroyed? Right. But you chose not to take that path. And so,
yeah, that's exactly right. But you have to understand that was a conscious effort every day. I had to get up and I had to tell myself, I'm not going to let this get me down. I'm not going to let bad things get me down.
Yes.
Because first of all, I think people expect me to be a certain persona. And if I don't do that, I'm letting those people down too. And so I kind of approach everything that way, is that you know what? It's real easy to get down about stuff, but the true people that mean something in everyone's lives are the people who don't let those things get them, and they stay positive and they try to see the good. It's really the glass half full principle.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just simply what it is.
Right on. And you do that. And thank you for representing that for
Thank
me
you.
and so many others. And the
Thank
people
you.
that aren't kind of in tune to that's what you choose. Hopefully they'll see you around the community and understand that you fight that battle every day. And thank you for letting us know that it is not just easy for you.
Right.
So you have to work on it.
Right. Yeah, I do. I have to remind myself. Most days I don't, but there's lots of days,
Yeah.
you get home and you've had a tough day at work and things didn't go as you hoped they would go. And you see your family and you're thankful for what you have. And I think sometimes we take those kinds of things for granted. And I think you have to, again, consciously every day count all your lucky stars.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. So those of you that don't know, Kenneth Knepper, Ken, I call you Ken.
Ken, yep.
Yeah, Ken. Right now, he's a business development commercial lender and vice president at the Citizen State Bank here in Newton. I've been there since 2014. Some of his other stuff that he's done in the past, branch manager, commercial lending. He's been in sales at all different levels and big commercial accounts, et cetera. Correct?
Right.
A local national advertising director, which I'm really excited to dig into that with you. Editor and publisher in different places. So got a lot of experience in different communities. Advertising director, general manager, advertising manager, press supervisor. And he's looked over and you've managed many, many people throughout your career in many different facets. Education is deep, going back to 1981 and leading all the way through different professional trainings that you've done up to this point in time, certificates, and just drill down and know-how. And on top of that, you spend a lot of time studying and reading for your own volition, right?
I do. I try to read a lot. I like to read things that have to do with the industries that I care about. And so, of course, media will always be my first love because that's what I started in. And I always tell everybody that, so I'm a banker by trade, but I'm a journalist by gene pool. And that's because my dad and my mom were both in journalism. That's how they met. And long story short, that's how I came to be. And so, it really is. I think it's in my genes. They say about how ink gets in your blood. I believe that's true.
Well, I feel that from you. And I'm really excited that you're able to share that on your accomplishments. Man, I mean, it's almost unbelievable.
Well, thank you. I mean, I just do things that I enjoy doing. And I've been fortunate over the years to have some good outcomes.
You've been a top performing banker quarter after quarter after quarter in your career in different areas, edited 4 different books in different ways. I mean, geez, 6-time recipient of the Kansas Press Associate Personal Column Writing Awards. I mean, we can just go on with and a lot of it's just your media knowledge and knowing how to navigate through communities and through systems and really understanding there are many components to media to make it function. From the sales and advertising all the way to the distribution of the content.
You're exactly right.
One of the things that you just understand all of that at a deep level, and it goes to the studying that you've done for this industry. And so thank you for helping us as we continue to move forward in the industry and figuring out we can't lose where we come from.
Right.
But there is a transition happening right now.
There is.
And so I'm hesitant to really talk about, you posted an article and so I read it and it really bothered me. And it wasn't personal,
right?
But the content bothered me and I knew I needed to contact you right away. I wanted to know more because if it bothered me, that meant there was something there I needed to know about.
Sure.
And we met for lunch and sure enough, you started opening doors for me and I was just in awe of that time we spent together. So instead of getting upset and getting in my corner and taking pop shots, I called you because I know the kind of guy you are. And thank you for saying yes and giving me that time. So I wasn't really sure I was going to go there, but it really was a thing really selfishly for me, just because I knew you had something that I needed to understand. And today in media, that's really hard to get. You get funneled in a way
Right.
that's very interesting. So can you go ahead and start off and just tell our listeners about your experience in media, where you
Sure.
started and
So I started out just like everybody in the newspaper business started out. I was a carrier.
right.
First of all, I was a substitute carrier. Then I worked my way up to having my own routes. Having a background with parents who had been in the industry, I went to work for the hometown paper, the Clay Center Dispatch, when I was in high school. I worked in the back shop part-time, and at that time we had a 6-day-a-week paper, so I worked every afternoon and then Saturday mornings. So what was neat about that was the publisher, Ned Valentine, was just a wonderful guy to work for because he encouraged me to try different things. So one day I'm working on the press and I understand how to do that, and I eventually figured it out. Then I moved up into the middle room and started working on the classified page and things like that. And then I learned how to design the pages, and then moved up front, started selling ads, started writing and shooting photos and all of that kind of stuff. And so that provided me a great overall view of what that industry is all about, because I got to see every facet of it and I got to touch it.
Yeah.
And you can only get so much at school. So I went to Fort Hays State and I studied journalism. And you can read all the books you want to, but until you've actually sat down, rolled up your sleeves, dug in, and had failures,
Right.
you can't say that you've really experienced it.
That's an amazing nugget right there. So action is everything. How long from the time Ned allowed you to start where you started to
Sure.
where when you went through that process all the way to taking pictures? How long was that time
So that
span?
was over 4 years,
Wow.
5 years maybe. I started in high school. My senior year, I started working there. I'd been a carrier at that paper up until that point. And then I worked in the back shop as part of a cooperative education class at high school. And so I always tell everybody that I ruined it for everybody after me because they stopped hiring the cooperative ed kids after I worked there, because I always said, hey, every time I get a break from school, I would like to come back and work for you. I'd like to do this. I'd like to do this. I'd like to do this. And so as I went to school out at Fort Hays, I'd come back on winter break and I'd go to work at the Dispatch. Spring break, I'd go to work at the Dispatch. And then all summer, I'd work at the Dispatch.
Wow.
So while, yes, I did probably crush the dreams of literally hundreds of kids, no, not really, who wanted to go into journalism, that gave me all those times to do that. And so all the way through 1984, I got to work on the different components of what made up the newspaper and how it worked and just the functionality of the entire thing of that media.
So I've heard from you that it was 4 to 5 years of learning.
Yes, it was.
And literally ground floor.
It literally ground floor. Yeah.
So,
because the paper carrier, there's your ground floor.
Yeah.
And it's
yeah. And you
So,
did it. And you did
yeah.
it diligently, I'm sure, knowing your character.
I had, let's see, 335 papers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a huge route on the north end of town. Basically, it was the whole north end of town. It was actually 435, not 335. So it was the entire north end of Clay Center. I had 2 routes, and my little sister and I carried papers. Back then, of course, you could ride in the back of a pickup. Nobody cared. So we would sit in the back of the pickup, go down the street. Mom would drive us around, and we'd throw papers.
Boom. And so you were shuffling,
Oh, yeah.
putting them in the sleeves, doing the whole deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did it all.
Wow.
Yep.
See, so this goes deeper than I even realized. So when did you begin to write and to do that piece?
So I really started writing right after I got out of college at Fort Hays. Keep in mind that I don't have a degree. I have 98 credit hours. So I could see the degree,
Yeah.
but just never finished it.
Yeah.
So I went into writing. I had a chance to go into writing for the Abilene Reflector Chronicle. So after I got out of school that junior year, I went to work for the Dispatch over the summer, and the Abilene Reflector Chronicle was looking for a city reporter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the time, I understood city reporter as being Abilene, Kansas.
Yeah.
What I later learned was city reporter means any city within the county of Dickinson. So that just meant that I was always moving around to Enterprise, to Chapman, to, all
Yeah.
those little towns inside Dickinson County and covering news.
Yeah.
So that's really when I started to write. Of course, I'd written for the school paper at Fort Hays,
Right.
but this really gave me, this was, people are reading my stuff and they care about what I read, what I write. And so, it took it up a notch.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. So you have this experience, and for the younger guys out there listening to this, there's a piece here where you're in high school working for a local paper, getting the experience. You go to college, you're focusing on that industry. Then you're diligent and built the relationships and the work ethic. So when you were time for you to come back in, it sounds like they always kept a spot for you.
Yeah, they did.
What do you think separated that from most people who kind of want to do it?
Well, I think really it was just the energy. I always felt that I had energy, and I went to them and said, "Hey, I love what I'm doing. I want to learn more. Will you give me another shot at Christmas break? Will you let me try something at spring break and then next summer?" And Ned was always the kind of guy who was like, "Yeah." Because I think that maybe he saw the diamond in the rough.
Absolutely.
As I was going through school, and maybe he saw that, maybe someday this kid could actually be somebody. And so I did that, and it was a sad day when I left the Dispatch and went to work for the Abilene paper. But Ned was the first guy behind me going, "This is it. This is exactly what you need to do." And so I went there. I got to shoot photos. I got to write stories. I started writing my column in 1985 at the Abilene Reflector Chronicle.
Wow. So Ned was one of your champions.
Oh, yeah. Still is.
Hands down.
Absolutely still is.
Do you guys still talk sometimes? You get to meet with him?
Yep. I just, about 3 months ago, just got to introduce him as the newest member of the Kansas Press Hall of Fame. So I had sent his name in and said, this is the guy, you got to let him in.
That's amazing.
Because it's a very, very select group. You have to keep in mind that the William Allen Whites of Kansas are in the Hall of Fame. So for Ned to get that honor, it was pretty big.
Yeah, and I know you probably pushed pretty hard, and you won't talk about that. But yes, because that was your guy, and he didn't ask for it, did he?
Nope, not at all.
Was he surprised?
He was shocked.
What a blessing.
He was shocked. And what really made it big for me was that he said, I was at a low place. And he said, I got that call that day, and he said, that changed everything. So,
man, that's cool.
It was huge.
That is huge. That's mega huge.
And then for me to be able to introduce him, give the backstory, talk about what I had learned, it was pretty big.
Pushing the industry forward, which here you are today with an opportunity to help guys like me that, it's not, the medium is so fragmented. Media.
Yes, it is.
And there's a lot of different ways to distribute it. And it's not what it was at one point. And I don't think it will never be, but we can bring the integrity back. And that's one thing that you carry is you really try to fight, in my opinion, from knowing you for the time I've known you. You really try to fight that middle ground. Because I shared with you when we met for lunch, I see you posting information here, and then I'll see you post it over here.
Yeah.
And you're taking yourself there.
Right.
And it triggered me to realize, man, you've gone way too far one way. You need to really start looking at that other angle, because there's lessons to be learned in both, right?
There really are.
With, the way the media is going today and not having the checks and balances and just how people will figure it out. Well, if we don't start voicing what's going on, people won't figure it out any faster than they would if we just leave them to their own devices, because it's very divisive today. Yeah. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, completely. We are seeing a time, I believe, in our lives that we can no longer see the middle ground. There used to be what we called civil discourse.
Yes.
Where people could say, well, I have a different opinion than yours, but we can still talk and be friends. Today, we're becoming a society that, hey, if you don't believe what I believe, well, we can't be friends anymore.
Yes.
My gosh, what kind of a world does that lead to?
Yes.
It's horrible.
It is.
And that's why I try to always say, let's look at your side. Let's look at my side. And I'm not saying that I'm completely right or that you're completely wrong. And that's what we need to do. And I think there's just too little of that.
I agree with you 100%. And I think it's dangerous on either side without opening doors to each other.
Yeah.
And then building bridges, right, between
Right.
the communications that need to come together eventually to fix what's going on.
You're right.
Because I told a gentleman, and I shared this with you, there's like, you can agree on 70% of something with somebody, and 30% will keep you guys from doing 70% of awesome.
Yeah.
And it's okay that you don't agree with 30%. You have some flavor in your life.
Right.
And you know what? Maybe I'll come closer to you on a certain subject over time if we're consistent. And maybe I'll just learn something that I didn't really pick up at the time for whatever reasons, right?
You're exactly right. That's the whole thing. And I think that goes back to our cores. You know, we all have unique upbringings, every one of us. But we cannot let those things become the filter for how we think for the rest of our lives. We better be open to, you know, seeing both sides of it and just going, okay, well, I can make an educated decision because I know this and I know this, and getting back to that middle ground. And we've lost that as a society, and it's really pretty sad.
For someone that's had the power of the pen and can
Right.
articulate like you can, and understanding the systems at the level that you've stewarded and managed them
Sure.
over the years, is how many years? 30?
26 years of full-time journalism. Yeah. And
That's a
then the
lot of
last
power.
couple of years, I work a little bit down at Newton now and help those guys out. Actually, that on my resume, I don't have it included, but I just won another personal column writing award
Yeah.
through them. So,
Yeah. That's awesome. So
Yeah.
you're still stewarding those
Oh, yeah.
systems and nurturing that. That's amazing. So when you have that kind of power, from somebody that I read articles, and I truly don't believe, and I could be ignorant, right? But I truly don't believe that people intend to write some articles that I read from all different types of papers that are
Sure.
out there. And even in the Facebook world, of course, you try to check where it's coming from. And some of that's getting better and cleaner because they have to put certain information on. So we're getting better.
Right.
But a lot of people still don't know how to check that, and that's okay. We'll get there, right?
Sure.
Just keep asking questions and don't start bashing people.
Right.
Ask questions and did you click the link over here just to see and look at those headers and what do you think you're maybe subscribing to?
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
and then just walk away, right? It doesn't have to
Yes.
turn into a fight, but and this is what I'm trying to do right now.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
But I read these articles, Ken, and I believe that people are really trying to do their job correctly. But we've been so skewed that the guys in the last 10 years have read so much, or I would say maybe even 15 years, have read so much. It's almost like they have to put their own personal flavor in it. You can feel it when you read it.
Right.
Instead of just saying, hey, here's the situation. Can you talk or give me some of the inside information on why that happens?
Well, I think that we have people that just get in the camps of, this is what I believe.
Yes, sir.
This is what fits me the best right today. And they head down that road, and they get so far down that road that they can no longer see the other road that's running parallel to that has somebody else's views.
Yeah.
And so as a result, you have folks that it just becomes a vitriol, you know? I mean, it becomes ugly, and many times the fact part doesn't even play a role anymore.
Mm.
That's what's really, really sad,
Mm.
is that you find your niche and you speak to those people, and facts no longer matter. And that's why, you know, everything that I look at, like on Facebook has literally dozens and dozens and dozens of news feeds that come out. And every one of them, before I even start reading it, I look at it and go, where did this come from? Because many times, you know what? It's not something that's real, but yet a lot of people look at it as real. And then sadly, that's what we take as truth.
And it's so easy because of the foundation that you set with the teams and Ned and
Yeah.
that group, and to you and the funnels of those guys
Yes.
that built these communication systems.
Yeah.
And then we go to this social media thing where it becomes, well, somebody paid X amount for X amount of clicks. So I'm going to manipulate some headliners.
Yes.
And put a theory behind it, but state a headliner as fact.
Right.
And because of the ground that's been set, people take that for gold.
Yes, they do.
And we're still not aware that that's going on.
Yeah.
Is there a way that you've unpacked, or the groups that you're involved with that you guys are talking about behind the scenes to help fix some of that?
Well, I mean, Facebook has launched a campaign to address those types of issues.
Mm-hmm.
And what they identify as fake news, they're trying to get rid of.
Right.
The problem, though, is that when your neighbors put something up and go, hey, this is what I just heard, and I'm talking now on a local level.
Yes,
but
me to you.
It's, it's still the same thing.
Mm.
Well, they can't, if there's been a failure of social media over the years since it came out,
Right.
clear back in the late 90s, the problem with social media has been it was intended for us to connect.
Right.
And show photos of our cats, cat videos.
Right.
And our children and all the cool vacation things we go on. But people at some point took a hard right turn and became a sound piece for your own personal agenda.
Mm.
And that's what's wrong with the whole social media thing. At this point, I don't know how you fix that.
Right. Yeah, I think there's people that are becoming more educated, because even on the algorithm side, right, there's clicks, and
Yes.
and in in Facebook or other mediums like it, social media in general, it's the state of the internet today. It's
Right.
all it is.
Yeah.
And it's changing, and
Yes.
we're changing along with it, with how we communicate
Yeah.
and what we do in that world. To understand, it's a very powerful tool, but a lot of people are still learning how to wield that power, right?
Right.
And it's easier than to sit down with somebody and have lunch with them when you read something that you're like, oh, there's something there that I need to learn. Instead of going to sit down and have a lunch, instead of behind the scenes getting upset and getting crazy.
You're exactly
I just
right.
think that's not healthy. And we need to learn how to kneecap to kneecap, I think, is always the best way to do
I
things.
agree.
And you humanize people and you humanize the situation, and you realize, dude, we have way more in common than we think.
Right.
But that same person, if you pay attention a little longer, a person like yourself, there's another post totally on the other side of that I naturally want to agree with, but then where are the holes in that?
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
And so this is where this conversation is coming to fruition. It's like, dude, this is so amazing that we can sit down and really unpack the differences between media and the new world, knowing it's happening, but we can't change it. But how do we fix the core foundation of journalism, which is something
Right.
that I have zero clues about.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, how do journalists lead the charge? Because you guys are the ones that are truly going to fix. It's not going to be government entities. It's not going to be the latest and greatest big two media companies coming together because they got agendas and they're bought by certain monies. It's going to be the local guys doing local stories on local people that bring the truth to the table and let people sift through it, right? And facts.
A mentor of mine has always told me that the way you truly fix journalism is, and the newspaper industry as a whole, is you have to see one day the failure of one of those mega companies. So it has to force the local newspapers to become locally owned.
Right.
Because they do have agendas. And if something happens that an advertiser, doesn't like something,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? They are going to not run that piece,
Right.
because they don't want to make the advertiser mad. There used to be a time that the news was first and
Yes.
foremost. And sometimes advertisers did get mad, and sometimes advertisers didn't advertise with you for a month.
Right.
But eventually they understood that, you know what? We still have to be part of this. And just because we don't agree doesn't mean that we just shut it down.
Is there a truth here that the advertising dollars have ran, which is part of the problem?
Mm-hmm.
It's just shifted.
Sure, it has.
And then so now companies are worried about their bigger accounts. So
Right.
it's easier for them to bend because of bottom line.
Yes.
Okay, so this is kind of a good lead in, and I hope and if you're not okay with this, please
Sure.
back me out, and I respect you 100%.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Thank you. There was a situation that you encountered in
Right.
your career
Yeah.
And you had worked many years to be at the pinnacle of a six-figure salary and getting in there and stewarding everything you've worked for. You got to be in that position with all the influence and everything.
Sure.
And you were asked to make decisions.
Yeah.
And you made decisions for people.
So we were purchased by a company.
Yes.
You get the song and dance that, hey, you guys are all coming in at the same level. Nothing's changing. It's great. Almost exactly 2 weeks from the day that happened, we get an email that says, we've identified that you need to reduce your staff. Well, you have to keep in mind that, everybody always feels like, yeah, if I had to, there are probably some things that we could change. And it's unfortunate, but it's just business, But we made our changes through attrition because we had folks that left. And so we just kept those positions dark afterwards. I was saddled with we're making plenty of money, all of a sudden I'm told that, you need to cut some more positions. And there comes a point when you just say, I'm not going to cut anything else. This is it. We're fine. We're making a lot of money. I know what we're making and it's okay.
Yeah. You were willing to figure it out.
Yeah. So I was told that, I needed to do that. And I said, well, I'm not going to do that. We'll figure out something else. But I felt that I was down to my core people and I couldn't let people go.
Right.
Because I've never been real comfortable in that kind of a position anyway, because that's not me at all. Mm-hmm. And these were good people and they were doing everything that I asked. And in fact, they had stepped up and were doing way more than I'd asked. And so we decided that we would agree to disagree. And so I said, okay, then I guess this will be it. And I resigned my position and that was it.
Yeah.
So that was a really, really dark day because everything that I wanted to do was be a journalist. And that was the only thing that I felt that I knew how to do at that point. And so I went home and told my wife that I had just resigned my position. And so it was pretty tough. And went to bed that night, had no idea what was going to happen.
Wow.
So the next morning, my wife got up at her usual time around 6 o'clock in the morning. And so I got up too. And she said, what are you doing? Why are you getting up at 6 o'clock? And I said, because if I don't do this, I've lost. And I will be in a bad place. And so every morning I got up at 6 a.m. with her and I started working on what I'm going to do next. So, and it was tough. It was really tough. But I knew it was going to be tougher if I laid in bed just once. If I did that, I was giving up and it was all over and I was going to sink into a bad place and I may never get out of that. And I couldn't do that to my family. And so every morning, that's what I did. And you know what? It was amazing because I reached out to a newspaper company based out of St. Joe, Missouri. And I said, hey, I'm looking for a job and I'm, this is my background. And I went up and interviewed with them. And I'll never forget it because we're in the interview and the publisher says, what were those guys thinking? You have everything we could ever ask for. Will you come to work for us? So I did.
Boom.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was, everybody has convictions. We all have convictions. At some level, everybody has a conviction that you go, if I'm pressed, I can't bend from here. That was my I can't bend from here moment. It was tough. It was sobering. It made you second guess everything about yourself. But I've learned so much from that moment about myself that I feel that I'm a much, much better person. And You know, I feel I'm a better husband, father, friend, everything.
That's amazing. The residuals from that decision.
It was tough. It was like I said,
Yeah.
I'll never forget that moment. And
Yeah.
I remind myself of that moment because when I feel like I'm down, like
Yeah.
I've had a tough day at work, I think back to that. This is nothing. This is so easy. You know, today is so easy.
You know, I'm in awe, really, still. Every time I remember talking to you. It had to be a week after that,
Right.
in my little office at the 500 building.
Yeah.
And your attitude and your resolve, and to unpack this for our guests or people watching and listening right now, and the younger guys have to make tough decisions what they're going to eat for lunch today. You know, when you have your family, and it's okay. We all go through that.
Oh yeah, we do.
But you know, when you've worked your whole life, literally, and you have your mentor that's in the industry and that's cheering you on, and you have all these things and all these people you want to make proud of you, and being a dude and wanting to provide and all those things, and a wife at home with the kids, and wanting to be a good example. I would hope to think that I would try to make that. I just can't tell you that I would. Honest, for me, you know, being honest, and I hope I would. Yeah. But until you're in that world or in that space, it's so. But then what happens if you did make the decision to you as a person? I think, could you share a little bit there?
Well,
could you go there? I know you're a positive guy, right?
Yeah.
But could
I gone there, I think that I would have lost who I was. I would have just become another corporate guy. And I was not willing to do that. Honestly, I worked for a lot of corporate newspapers in my career. And I was never a huge fan of the corporate mentality anyway. The corporate mentality was, you know, how much have you done for me today? That's always the way it was. Local journalism, doing the right thing, making a difference in your community, well, that was like number 2 or 3. It was, what have you done for me today as far as like sending me cash?
Bottom line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was always kind of sensitive to that. And I always thought, you know, if there was ever an opportunity to work for a family paper, I would jump at it in a heartbeat. And so I don't know what would have happened had I decided to just go along with the corporate guy. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be the same person I am today.
Yeah.
Because I would have caved.
Right.
And I couldn't look myself in the mirror because I have no convictions. I'm just a corporate guy.
You bent.
Yeah.
You know, there's this interesting thing I read, and it talks about having boundaries for your life, and you let somebody kind of push you like this, and the next thing you know, they push you like this, and the next thing you know, they push you a little bit more, and you're up against the wall before you start saying anything, but you let them get you up against the wall. And to be sitting across with somebody with that kind of integrity, and it's on stage now, right? I mean, you've lived it out, you walked it out, and you continue to walk that lifestyle out with your attitude and everything else, and a family man and all that. And you are an executive in the greatest sense because you have these foundational things that I think companies would be ridiculous not to see someone like yourself and bring you on board, because what you do for the team, the attitude you bring, your work ethic. I mean, just the guy who follows up and wants to work hard enough that they just don't tell him no, right? Because he's that kid that has that something, and that's a choice. And you make those choices, and we can all do that. It's just hard, you know?
Right. It is. And, I'll tell you that the thing is that you can't let emotions dictate what you decide. No matter what, you have to be able to take a step back, take a deep breath, let it out slowly, and then think about, how is this really going to impact globally? Because I'll tell you, I've worked for guys that were emotional bosses. And first of all, the difference between a boss and a leader. A boss is the guy who says, do this. The leader is, let me take you by the hand and show you the way. So I've worked for bosses who have that emotional mentality.
Right.
And they go from 0 to 100 in about 2 seconds, and they're freaking out and they're yelling and screaming and everything. You know, You should never be that guy. And so that's something, just because I've experienced that consciously, I every day go in and I'm like, there's nothing here that's going to make me freak out. Never.
Yeah.
Because we're going to take a look at it. I'm going to instigate some help from some people that I have working with me. We're going to figure it out and we're going to go from there. So we always had to take personality tests when I worked for the newspaper industry. And mine always came back that I was like the glass guy. So I just smooth. Nothing really got me all riled up.
I can see that.
Yeah. And it was just always interesting because most of the people that were in the corporation with me, they were emotional and they made decisions emotionally. And I was always the guy that was totally opposite of that. And it was always because I always stood out. So I was always the example. It's like, well, look at him. He's, totally different from everybody. Well, it's just, you can't do that.
You're such an interesting character on so many levels. And I love it because you have this very reasonable, calculative understanding of how things function and work. And you totally get it. You could unpack all of it, but you don't. A lot of guys who go there at the level that you've been there, you are there in some sense now, but you always weigh people.
Right.
And so many people lose that because they feel like you have to. And so that's why you're such an interesting dichotomy of an individual who you keep. So, and it goes back to your journalism blood, I think, from unpacking with you today. It's like, you are that guy. You can look at these things, but at the end of the day, you keep the human element first.
Well, you can never expect to get 100% out of your team. You're never going to fly if you're not willing to be the backbone of your coworkers. You have to be that guy. You have to be willing to stand up for them. You have to be willing to take them by the hand and lead them, and sometimes stand right beside them throughout a pain or a struggle.
Yeah. Because
that's what makes you a great leader.
Right.
And so, I try to live by that principle, and I do that. I'm just a coworker today in my role, but I still, every day, first thing in the morning, I send out happy anniversaries to the people that are having work anniversaries. I send out happy birthdays to all the people in my company that are having birthdays. If it's on a weekend, I have on my calendar at 2:00 every Friday afternoon, I send out the early birthdays and anniversaries, because you know what? Those people are working really hard. And I don't think that anybody ever comes to work in the morning and says, I'm going to have a really lousy day. It's going to be horrible.
100%.
They come in and they want to do the best they can do. And I'm just there to help support them and make them feel good about it.
Oh, man, that's so good. Thank you for choosing you. For guys like me and being a resource and opening the door for me when I asked that you'd be willing to, take some of my crazy ideas and help me unpack that in a way that could be healthier as we distribute these mediums and this media that we're working on here. And one of the things I wanted to do is just humanize you as a leader.
Sure.
And we were at a deal. I was sitting on a board with a group of people, and they asked for somebody, and they literally unanimously, it was Ken, if Ken does it, oh my gosh, he's so awesome. And that's the things that they began to say for about 5 minutes, and you weren't there.
Wow.
And these are great people, and just that think the world, and they work hard, and they pitch into the community, and they do amazing things, and their hearts are right, and we all step in stupid. Me, the first one to tell you I'm the worst one, and I try hard, but just to hear that, and I just sat back and you know what? He is all those things. And so thank you for giving us your time today.
Thank you.
And thank you for being the media icon that I can turn to and say, dude, please, can you lend me this? And thank you for doing that and being a resource for me moving forward in our team here that we're building. Last thing is, what is Ken curious about right now moving forward? Can you give me 3 to 4 minutes on that?
Well, I mean, obviously the newspaper industry is it's going to be paramount forever.
Yeah.
It really is. What I want to see, what I'm hoping that I'm starting to see is some of these startup companies coming along and reinventing local journalism. That's been something that we've so lacked because, thinking of it from a corporate standpoint, what costs you the most money? Well, it's the guy that writes the news story because he's not bringing in any revenue, technically. Circulation, subscribers, that type of thing. But those subscribers also take the paper because they're getting ad flyers and they're getting ads in the paper. So the first guys that you get rid of are the guys that cost you the most money. And those are the guys that write the hard stories. And so we've become this corporate view of news that it's all about advertising first. And, we have this little news hole and we'll plug in a little something here, but it needs to be light. We don't want to step on anybody's toes or take potential of, somebody getting upset. And so seeing some of these companies and just guys in the community that have been journalists and just all of a sudden coming in and going, I think I can start a paper. Oh man, it's powerful. It's awesome. And it just gives me all kinds of energy because, I talk to several of those guys across the state and they call me and they go, hey, you work for the corporate guys. Well, tell me something about this. And so I share, my opinions and we take a look at stuff. And sometimes we drill down and we go, if you cut this, if you cut down on this, and if you did this, and if you shape this way, you could probably make some more money. And just because of all those years of looking at, I tell everybody that, as far as financials go, I am not a big numbers guy. I like to write. I can write about numbers.
Yeah.
But the newspaper world, I lived and breathed that for many, many years.
Yeah.
And so I understand what that means and I understand what those numbers represent. And lots of times, just being able to have a conversation with those guys, oh my gosh, it's empowering to me because I'm not a has-been. I'm still the guy.
That's right.
I can still be the guy.
100%.
So
if anything, more valuable than you've ever been because of that attitude of what you just talked about. You talked about reinventing.
Yeah.
You're open to how does this need to be placed better, differently, and keep it on a powerful local scale.
Right.
Where we do matter. Our stories matter.
Exactly.
You matter.
It does.
It does.
Really, really does. And you have to have a voice. If you're a local newspaper, you better have good spot news. You better have, obviously you need to have the obituaries because that's my dad used to write obituaries. Actually, Dad used to be an editor here at Newton at the Kansan years and years ago. And he always said that, the society editor used to always tell him, this is your last chance to write a good story about a person. Get it right. And so you think about that on an obituary and you think, wow, that's the last chance you have to write about that person. And so get it right. So, but you have to have those kinds of things. You also have to have, I think, a strong opinion page, which is your editorials, which those are your opinion, but those had better be very clearly on a different page from your front page and your inside news pages.
Yes.
That people go in, they see, opinion. So this is just an opinion. It's not necessarily hard news.
Yes.
It should be based on facts. And if it's not, then you're not doing it right. But if you do that, have an opinion page because you want to start the conversation in the community.
That's right.
We've been fortunate that we have that right now in the weekly paper.
That's great.
And it works. It really works because whether people agree or disagree, they think about it. And that's all you're trying to do is just get them to think about maybe the other side. And they go, never thought about that. But that's the thing. I mean, the industry, seeing those little guys see an opportunity because the corporate guys have, unfortunately have stripped to the bare bones a lot of newspapers around the area.
Well, I think it's there. Those entities are on, they're called up. Yeah. So, and there's little pockets growing. If we could learn to play together differently and share and grow and provide value and information, and a lot of times for me, it's there may be nothing in it for me, right? But at the end of the day, it's doing the right thing that matters because I know my rewards lie in all the unsaid things that you said came out of your situation.
Right.
I know that's my truth.
Yes.
So it's just not expecting anything. Sometimes the best grateful blessing that I could ever give to myself, because it's like that's where my rewards lie, is in that space and being there more is what I need to do more of. So, hey, Ken, thank you so much, man, for spending this time.
Absolutely, Andy. Anytime. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'd love to have you back on. I know there's a
Okay.
lot of things I'm going to get and questions we're going to get. So I'd have more specific stuff to talk about as we unpack media and as we move forward. And as me and you continue to share, who knows what the future brings. But you are not a has-been. I can't even imagine that coming from you. But no, and there's so much moving forward that, you know, the innovators like yourself and people who helped create this platform that we're championing, we're still in that middle ground right now where we need to figure out what this looks like. Because I have zero clues. You have so many keys. So thank you for being a resource for the small guys like me that want to learn and grow.
Anytime.
And means the world. Is there anything we can do for you?
You guys just keep doing what you're doing.
Right on.
Keep looking at all the different things that you look at, the aspects, getting the word out. That's huge.
Yeah.
That really is huge.
Absolutely.
So,
and you know what? If there's ever anything you see that we can do better or tweak, your word is gold to me. So please don't hesitate to ask.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, man.
All right.
Harvey County Digital, episode 11 with Ken Knepper. We're out.